What was going through your mind when you took in the scene?
Two dead girls in the trunk. It's a punch in the gut.
They were trying to cover their face. They knew they were about to be shot.
It was the only case in my 20 years I had to walk away to collect myself.
How do we tell her mother? I mean, what do you say?
He told me, Cheryl, they're murdered. You spend your whole life keeping your little girls safe. It was my worst nightmare.
We're doing everything to get to the bottom of who did this.
It was a whodunit murder. Everybody was a suspect.
Did you ever get to the point where you gave up that her killer would ever be caught?
I could never imagine what could have gotten my baby. Except the devil himself.
In Ozark, Alabama, a little more than 80 miles from the capital in Montgomery. The small city became the setting for one of the state's most notorious crimes when two teenage girls disappeared on their way to a birthday party. Almost immediately, both of their families sensed that something was terribly wrong. But no one who knew JB or Tracy could ever have imagined what the heartbreaking mystery would ultimately reveal. August 1st, 1999. It was a hot Sunday morning when police received a call from a distraught mother. She said that her 17-year-old daughter Tracy and the teenager's friend JB Beasley were missing. What time was she expecting them home?
The night before Tracy called, they wanted permission to stay out a little longer. And her mother said, "You come straight home." She said, "Yes, ma'am."
The teenager told her mother they were at a payphone about a half hour away from Tracy's home.
The phone call ended around 11:43.
They should have been home by 12:30 at the latest.
Tracy's mother dozed off waiting for the girls. And when she woke up, she was terrified to discover that they still weren't there. Did Tracy's mom think it was possible that they had spent the night at some friend's house?
No.
Tracy's mother explained that the girls had gone out the night before to celebrate JB's birthday.
Their plans were to go to a party put on by another classmate. They did not arrive at that party.
None of the girls' friends had seen them that night. Investigators put out a statewide bolo on the two missing teens and the black Mazda they were driving. The same morning that the girls were reported missing, an important discovery was made in Ozark. What was it?
One of the Ozark Police Department officers located the car.
He said, "Chief, I don't feel too good about this."
Their car was in a city that it didn't belong in. The car was unsecured. The windows were partially down.
What observations did police make when they looked more closely at the car?
Tracy's purse was on the passenger floorboard, and they located a driver's license that belonged to JB.
The keys to the car were missing, and there was no sign of JB or Tracy. Was it their belief that the girls had left the car there?
Nobody leaves their windows down, doors unlocked, and purses laying on the seat.
What was going through your mind when you took in the scene?
We all think of the worst things that could happen. That's how this is gone in the end.
And Chief White's premonition was realized when he asked for the Mazda's trunk to be searched.
Two dead girls in the trunk that were my girls. It's a punch in the gut.
Both teenage girls had been shot to death.
They were fully clothed. They were laying parallel to each other, their hands close to their face as if they were trying to cover their face.
One of them was temple shot, the other one was through the cheek. Horrible.
They knew they were about to be shot and killed.
That was the worst, seeing them in the trunk. I had nightmares about that for 10 years.
Trooper Barry Tucker of the Alabama State Bureau of Investigation will never forget the gruesome sight.
First thing I saw was the headshots, and it was tough. I had a little girl myself. It's the only case in my 20 years with the Bureau that I had to walk away from the scene just to collect myself.
After gathering himself, State Trooper Tucker went to work. He noticed a single 9mm shell casing had been found and that the clothing both girls were wearing was wet and dirty.
There was a lot of mud on their pants from the knees down. Their shoes were muddy.
Was there any mud in the area around the car?
No, ma'am, there was not. It was fairly dry around that area. There was no mud anywhere near there.
Did investigators believe then that the girls had gotten muddy someplace else before they were left in the trunk of the car?
It was obvious that wherever they got wet was not there.
Police didn't find anything in or around the car that convinced them that this was the murder scene.
We did do a very, very thorough search because our thoughts are, if we can find the other shell casing at this location, it would indicate to us that they were killed there.
Detectives were puzzled. They continued looking for clues as to what had happened.
As you stood back from the vehicle, you could see the blood dripping from under the car. All trunks have drain plugs. I crawled under the car and could see where the blood had blown back up under the car, which indicated that the car was in motion while there was blood draining out.
What did you conclude from that?
The actual homicide took place at a different location.
It also meant the killer had been the last person to drive the car. Were there any fingerprints found on the car or inside the car that moved the investigation forward?
There was a partial palm print above the driver's door on top of the car.
And police found that the rearview mirror had been snapped off.
That was not normal. It takes some strength to pull a rearview mirror off of a window.
As investigators tried to piece together what the evidence meant, they also knew the worst job in law enforcement was still ahead.
How do we tell her mother? I mean, what do you say?
J.B. Beasley's mother, Cheryl, knew her daughter was missing, but nothing could prepare her for the call she received.
I said, "What is going on?" He told me, "They're murdered. She's dead." And I screamed and threw the phone.
I can't even imagine the shock of what you had to deal with.
You spend your whole life keeping your little girls safe. Can't even put words to it. It was just a mess from then on.
The heartbreaking news about the violent deaths of J.B. Beasley and her friend Tracy Hollett quickly spread across the state of Alabama. What was the community's reaction to the murders?
They were terrified. You've got two little girls that have been brutally murdered right there in the middle of town. They were typical young teenage girls that thought they were going to a birthday party, and the rest is just a horror story.
The teenagers could have been anyone's daughters. In fact, Chief White knew Tracy Holland and her family.
She lived a half a mile from my house. Rode to school with my son every morning. You think you'll never find one of your friends like that. That's what made it so hard.
And while investigators struggled to process what the crime meant to them, it was simple for J.B. Beasley's mother, Cheryl. Her life had been shattered. She had lost her precious daughter, a talented dancer who dreamed of becoming a pediatrician.
Anything she tried, she mastered. It was effortless for her.
Who did you think could have been responsible?
I had no clue. I just could never imagine what could have gotten my baby except the devil himself.
The lack of obvious suspects added another hurdle for the investigators. And they hoped that the autopsy results might move the case in the right direction. It was clear both girls had been killed execution style inside the trunk of the car. What did the preciseness of those wounds tell you?
It was close contact. You're talking about within 2 feet.
What did the autopsy conclude about a potential sexual assault?
JB did have semen on her clothing.
If you find semen on a little girl that's got a bullet in her head, there's been a sexual assault.
All the evidence police had collected, the girl's muddy clothes, the blood on the car's undercarriage, and the autopsy findings told a chilling story. 2 young girls had been attacked, forced into the trunk of their car, and then murdered. And so far, police had no witness or suspect.
We were doing everything humanly possible to get to the bottom of who did this.
And that hard work helped police identify the location of the payphone where the teenagers had made their final call home. Did investigators find any new leads when they went to the convenience store where the girls had made their call from?
Yes, we talked to a number of people that were at the store that night.
The store's clerk never saw the girls, but the area by the phone was covered by a surveillance camera.
So this is the last place that the 2 girls were seen alive. The payphone was here.
The camera captured JB and Tracy using the phone and having a conversation with 2 women who were getting gas.
The camera was not a rolling video. It took shots, like every 3 seconds you'd get a still shot.
When police made the story of what had happened to JB and Tracy public, Marilyn immediately came forward.
My daughter said that the girls that we had seen at the convenience store had been found murdered. It was on the news. I couldn't believe it.
Marilyn told police the teenagers were trying to find an outdoor party in the area.
They were lost. They were disappointed that they had missed the birthday celebration and concerned that they would not make curfew. They asked, what is the best way to get back to Dothan? So I gave them directions.
The still images proved that the girls left the store's parking lot safely. Could you tell what direction the girls were headed in from the surveillance video?
from the surveillance video, they were headed in the proper direction, home.
Investigators studied the images carefully, certain that within minutes of those pictures having been taken, Tracy and JB would cross paths with their killer. And they went to great lengths trying to find additional witnesses.
There were awards offered by the governor's office, by local churches, $50,000 for information leading to the arrest of the individuals that murdered J.B. Beasley and Tracy Holland.
Oh, my God. I can't tell you how many news and TV programs did stories.
Reporter Ken Curtis covered the case for WTVY Channel 4.
Things like that, they don't happen here. They don't happen to good 17-year-old girls with such a bright future.
What impact did this crime have on the community?
People were in shock. There were a lot of prayer vigils. People just couldn't put their arms around a crime like this happening in a place where crimes like that didn't happen.
Just weeks after the murders of J.B. Beasley and Tracy Holland, the investigation was at a standstill. Then, a man walked into the Ozark Police Department with a lead that would reignite the case. Who was he, and what did he tell them?
His name was John Barentine. His statement was that he was out by himself that night riding around Ozark, and he picked up a stranger. They rode around for a few minutes just talking and spotted the girls at the store. Shortly thereafter, they followed the girls.
The teenagers stopped for a moment, and the stranger jumped out of Barentine's truck and approached their car.
The guy got in the car with the girls.
Barentine followed the Mazda and saw the terrifying events that happened next.
They went off into the countryside. He said he watched the individual take the girls' lives.
Barentine said after the two girls were murdered, the stranger drove JB's car to the location where police found it.
The guy drove the car to the spot. He got in the truck with Mr. Barentine, and he took the guy down the road and dropped him off.
Did he ever explain why he didn't call the police at that point?
No.
Barentine claimed he didn't know the killer, but he was interested in collecting a potential reward.
The problem with Mr. Barentine is in his story, when he said, I watched it happen, I didn't do anything to stop it, and I took the murderer to a location and let him go.
He portrays himself as a witness.
You can't do that in Alabama. That's illegal. You're an accessory. You were part of it. In the words of the DA, we can't let him go. We had to arrest him.
The arrest made Barentine a headline-making news figure across the state of Alabama. But it quickly became clear that making the charges against Barentine stick would be challenging. Doubt surfaced about the veracity of his account.
Every time they interviewed Johnny William Barentine, he had a little different version of the story.
When investigators dug deeper, the cracks continued to grow.
His wife at the time said that he got home at 11:30. That's the time the girls are being seen, getting directions. Things just didn't add up.
At what point were you convinced that he had made up the story?
I would say within a couple of days, we talked to his wife, we talked to his friends, and it was pretty obvious to us this didn't happen.
He ultimately confessed that it was a fabricated lie to obtain the reward money. DNA was taken.
Did it match the DNA evidence from the crime scene?
No, it did not.
And the charges against Barentine were eventually dropped once law enforcement was certain he had played no role in the double murder.
There was nothing to substantiate that he actually committed those murders.
It was devastating news for the victims' families.
You're hopeful. Oh my God, this is it. You want an answer so bad. When that became nothing, it just destroyed me all over again.
Barentine's bogus story was more than just a time-consuming dead end for investigators. It had made making an actual arrest much more difficult.
Everything we had was released to the public. There were no more secrets. And it became a very, very big problem for us.
But detectives knew that no obstacle was going to prevent them from getting justice for JB and Tracy.
We just had to put this behind us. The real killer was still out there.
That meant casting a wide net to find him.
Everybody was a suspect till proven otherwise.
And unlike most cases where police find the potential killer hiding in the shadows, this investigation forced detectives to eliminate suspects who were actually vying for the spotlight.
We had a number of what we like to call wannabes.
Have you ever had another case like this in law enforcement?
Never. There were between 30 and 50 people that we looked at hard because somebody just wanted to run his mouth. It was frustrating, but that's just the nature of the beast.
Did you ever get to the point where you gave up on the idea that her killer would ever be caught?
I don't know if I gave up. I just got used to it. You hurt so bad. I tell you, I don't know how I've lived this long. It's just devastation.
For more than a decade, many feared the murders of J.B. Beasley and Tracy Hollett might never be solved. Then, a writer shared a shocking story on the internet. It was based on the account of an auxiliary police officer. That blog post put the people investigating the crime under their own microscope. What kind of allegations did she make?
16 years after the murders, all of a sudden, she knew a police officer killed the girls.
What were her specific allegations against the police officer?
Her allegations were that she had overheard an Ozark police officer in a drunken state admit he killed those girls.
And there was more.
She said that police officers knew who did it and they covered it up.
How did the public react to her allegations?
This exploded on social media. Wow, why didn't we ever hear about this before? It is the most bizarre unsolved crime in Southeast Alabama history, and officers are covering up the crime? Really?
Could it have been a cop? Sure, it could have been a cop. We heard all the rumors, and we ran every one of them down.
Including evidence that potentially linked a fellow officer to the crime.
There's a palm print on top of the car. Somebody may have been leaning and talking like a traffic stop.
And there was another clue supporting that theory. JB's driver's license had been found outside of her wallet. What was the atmosphere like when you had to rule out fellow police officers?
That's tough, to go to a police officer and say, hey, somebody said that You did this.
Detective Michael Bryan had to confront his colleague face to face in the interrogation room. Was there anything that came out in the interview that convinced police he had any involvement in the murders?
No, none whatsoever.
What happened when they compared his DNA to the DNA from the crime scene?
It was a negative. It was not a match.
The evidence helped prove that the allegation was another false lead.
The more you peeled back, it just showed there was nothing to substantiate those claims.
Eventually, the auxiliary officer recanted her story.
At the end of the day, she took her wrong and made it right.
And by that, you mean she admitted she made up the allegations?
Her words? I lied. I lied.
What do you think motivated her to make those false allegations?
Attention. Being in the light.
It's almost like they want to be involved in the case because of what it had evolved into.
Reputations were damaged, and hundreds, if not thousands of hours were wasted.
It was a tremendous distraction for law enforcement. It had to have an impact. If not on the investigation, it had an impact on them personally.
But despite that personal impact, law enforcement's desire to bring the real killer to justice never faded. And after more than a decade of chasing bogus leads, investigators decided to start over from scratch.
Over the years, I've learned that when you look at a case and say, what is the most probable thing that happened here? 99% of the time, that's your thing.
And in this case, the most logical explanation would be the hardest to prove. That two teenagers were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time when they ran into a monster. After 17 years, the unsolved murders of J.B. Beasley and Tracy Hollett remained a top priority for police. And that meant new investigators like Chief Marlos Walker were given the case file.
It was cold, but you still cannot ever give up. And you got to think that very next person I talk to is going to give me something.
In 2018, detectives turned to forensic genealogy to jumpstart their case. What happened when that unknown DNA was tested?
This company came back and said, here are some names that this strand of DNA is associated with.
One of the surnames involved was McCraney. The police chief, in fact, had gone to high school with the McCraney. So the chief said he would call and see if he would provide his DNA to allow them to narrow the search.
Chief Walker invited his former classmate, Coley McCraney, to come talk to him.
I explained to him we had a name matching his family's name, and I wanted to get his DNA to see if there's any connections.
At first, McCraney, a married preacher with 6 children, was hesitant to cooperate.
He was reluctant to give his DNA, and his wife said, just help him.
And that push was all it took.
Coley McCraney agreed to give his DNA.
Police were optimistic that McCraney's sample would help them expand the offender's family tree and bring them a step closer to solving the case. But no one could have imagined what happened next.
That lab called back and said, you don't have to go any further. You have a match.
I had to take a seat. It can be a little overwhelming. Wow, finally, a break.
At that point, I looked at Chief Walker and I said, let's go get him.
Coley McCraney was arrested in March of 2019, nearly 20 years after the murders. You were there when McCraney was arrested. Describe to me how it unfolded.
We put handcuffs on him and brought him around to the side and told him what he was being arrested for. But McCraney never said a word.
Although that silence spoke volumes, police knew the double homicide was completely at odds with McCraney's image as a father and a man of faith. You led the interrogation. What was your game plan?
Initially, to do a little background on him, where he lived at the time of the murders, that then would lead into finding out if he could give an explanation why his DNA was on the girls.
Was there any evidence that suggested that he knew either of the girls?
He was asked very specifically, do you know either of these two girls? He said no. He had no idea who they were, had never met them before.
What was your reaction when you found out he lived just blocks away from the convenience store?
When you start looking at the evidence, such as where the car was parked, where they were last seen, that puzzle starts being put together.
Detective Brian then confronted McCraney with the DNA evidence. Do you remember what you said to him?
I asked him, do you want the evidence to speak for itself, or do you want to speak for the evidence? Giving him the opportunity to try to explain what happened.
What was his response?
He appeared as if he didn't even know what I was talking about.
As Detective Brian got up to leave the room, he decided to take a gamble.
He put the pictures of the girls on the table, but he also put a picture of Mr. McCraney's family on the table. And then he left, and Mr. McCraney at that point broke down in tears.
In the absence of a confession, what did that really mean?
I know what it meant to me. He did it. That's my guy.
Following that emotional outburst, McCraney ended the interview and asked for an attorney. That meant it was time for Chief Walker to update those closest to JB and Tracy with news of the arrest.
I called in family members and had a meeting with them and let them know.
When they told me they'd got the guy, I just couldn't believe it. His DNA was 100% matched.
Did the arrest help lift any of your burden?
Absolutely.
To see their faces, you realize why you do what you do.
McCraney was charged with capital murder. He pled not guilty. Circumstances required that Alabama's Attorney General, Steve Marshall, try the case himself. What sentence was he facing for the capital murder charges?
It was either death or life without the possibility of parole.
What did you see as your biggest challenge as you went to trial?
This was a circumstantial case. I didn't have a murder weapon. I couldn't point to a particular place in which this took place, and I did not have a direct witness to these events. It was more like somebody doing sort of a connect-the-dots puzzle.
McCraney's trial opened in April of 2023. Talk to me a little bit about the pressure of having tried this case, which had been in the public eye for decades.
I don't know that I've ever personally tried something with more pressure. It's not the norm that the Attorney General is showing up to lead a trial team. But one thing that was clear to me is that community wanted answers.
Perhaps the trial's most dramatic moments unfolded when Coley McCraney took the stand and told jurors a very different story than the one he had shared with police.
That's when he begins to give a ludicrous story of how he met JB.
He stated he had met JB at the mall and befriended her.
And McCraney went even further, He claimed he had plans to meet JB that night.
He said the girl showed up around 11:30. He said he got in the car with the girl. They drove approximately 8 miles to his truck. And he stated that he and JB had sexual relations, and the last time he saw them, they were alive.
Did you believe any of that?
Absolutely not.
The defense never presented a shred of evidence that supported McCraney's testimony.
His story was just bad. He hurt himself on the stand.
One thing that we always tell jurors is don't leave your common sense at the door. Because if you don't believe his story, then how can you believe that he didn't commit this offense?
Still, for JB's mother, McCraney's testimony and the defense team's theory of the crime added insult to the incredible injury she had already suffered.
What is this case based on? Some DNA that a black man had sex with a white girl. That's really what we're talking about here.
I had to sit there and weather every minute of the lies, the way they made my child appear. It was horrible.
Cheryl and the investigators on the case then had to wait and see who the jury believed.
When they came in and said, "We have a verdict," 24 years that I worked this case, my heart skipped a beat.
Describe that moment.
Silence. And I think that was just because you just didn't know what to expect.
What was the verdict?
The verdict was guilty. Coley McCraney had raped JB, and he was found guilty of capital murder in Alabama.
When McCraney was sentenced to life without parole, both mothers approached Attorney General Marshall and hugged him.
It was special because I didn't want to be in the position of having to look at either of those mothers and say, "I'm sorry." The fact that we were successful meant everything.
Following those public congratulations, JB's mother had a quiet moment alone.
It just healed so many things inside of me in ways I just can't even hardly explain.
Based on everything you know about this case, what do you think really happened the night of the murders?
I think Mr. McCraney did see them at that phone. He did get in their car. He put a gun to their head and said, "Drive, I'll tell you where to go." He took them off into the woods. He forced them into the trunk of the car at gunpoint. He shot those two little girls in that car.
In the end, then, it was just about these young girls being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Sadly enough, that's the case.
Still, Cheryl Burgoon is grateful for the peace of mind the guilty verdict provided. But there are some wounds that will never heal. Are you bitter that he was able to get away with murder for so many decades and go on to be a preacher?
I couldn't believe it. Oh my God, you have lived 20 years blissfully with children and in the PTA and PTO, and you're a preacher. I wanted to die for 20 years. I feel cut off at the knees. I'm just so sad. They were good girls.
After decades of prayer vigils to bring attention to the case, the community has now built a permanent memorial for JB and Tracy. It's a way of honoring 2 lives taken far too soon. I'm Paula Zahn. Please join us again next time when we're back on the case.